This is Melissa Thomas with Florida National News. We are here at the Haines City City Hall where U.S. Congressman Darren Soto will be hosting his town hall on voting rights specifically. He will be here as part of a panel along with the chairman of the Black Caucus, Congressman Cedric Richmond, along with the president of the Haines City NAACP and U.S. Senator Bill Nelson. So stay tuned for all of their remarks as well as brief interviews thereafter. This is Melissa Thomas with Florida National News.
The first subject that I wanted to talk about briefly is the upcoming Restoration Rights Amendment that is on the ballot in November. And we're here today to provide information on that amendment.
On the ballot, November the 6th, is going to be a constitutional amendment to the state constitution that would change the way we go about restoring rights, particularly the right to vote to someone who has been convicted of a felony. Approximately 170,000 people are convicted of felonies each year in the state courts system in Florida. About 27,000 of those end up going to prison. So there are a lot of people that are convicted felons that are out in the community trying to earn a living and go about and live their normal lives. Of the 27,000 that go to prison, if you look at the statistics in the Florida prison system, approximately 47% of the prison population is African American. The proposal that is before the people to vote on is, do you want, if someone has done their time and they're not convicted of murder or of a sexual offense, do you want those people to automatically get their right to vote restored? This is before the people because there is a system in place that was attempted to be reformed one administration ago. But then, under the current administration, has been taken backwards, whereby the net result is very few people get their right to vote restored, even though they've done their time. And of course, this is happening to 170,000 people per year. So, I would encourage you, if you believe, as I do, that if you have done your time, you ought to be able to have your right to vote restored. I would certainly encourage you to go to the polls and vote yes on Amendment 4.
Only 4 states, only 4 in the entire United States still have this discriminatory system. 46 states have automatic restoration. So Florida is the great outlier. And as you see these things, that's important to know. This is not a normal process. People, after they pay their debts to society in other states, 46 of them automatically get the right.
Darren mentioned the disenfranchisement of formerly incarcerated people who have served their time, paid their debt to society, and are still excluded from the voting process. And when you think of America, and you think of our exceptionalism, and you think of our great democracy, what makes America so great is our democracy, and the fact that people have a voice in their government. And then if you think back to the Boston Tea Party, it's all about taxation without representation. And if we think about our formerly incarcerated friends and family and strangers, because they have made a mistake, they will never participate in the democracy. They will never vote on the laws and the taxes that govern them. And I think that flies in the face of the Constitution, and my research shows that that is just another vestige of Jim Crow. Darren mentioned the census. And I will tell you, to communities like this and communities like where I come from, when you start excluding people from the census or intimidating people from actually filling out the census and getting counted, it means communities don't get the resources that they deserve. They will have the people, but they won't have the resources. So when you start talking about making sure that Head Start is funded so that early childhood education and kids can get a equal start with everyone else, it will be underfunded. When you start talking about school systems, roads, bridges, community block grant money to cities and all those things, if you're not counting all of your citizens, then that is just another form of big cities with different types of populations who count everyone getting more than their fair share. So the good news is that when we all come together, there's not a fight in this country that Americans, that when they came together and fought, that they didn't win. And justice usually prevails, and the mark of the moral universe bends towards justice. It just doesn't bend on its own. The good news is it's the people in this audience and the people up here who use their blood, sweat, and strength to bend that arc towards justice. So.
Thank you everyone for coming. I'd like to start by saying Latino Justice, we stand by and we support directly people who have been impacted, returned citizens, and we will stand with them until this system is fixed. I stand here today because I am directly impacted. I am one of the returned citizens. I am one of the 1.4 million Florida citizens who on election day are unable to participate in our democracy. So this is important to me. I am a part of our community. It has been more than 11 years since I've completed my sentence. In that time, I have maintained employment. I have paid my taxes. I have obeyed Florida laws, but yet I cannot vote for those who make the laws. But while this is important to me because I'm impacted, there was a time when this became very personal to me. In 2016, my wife, Aaron Sayala, ran to be the 9th Circuit State Attorney. And in that dark moment, while I was in the middle of her campaign, organizing at every event, I was unable to do the one thing, the most important thing that you can do for a candidate when they run for office, and that's vote for her. In addition to that, I have had a productive life. So there are people that are like, why, you're okay, you can live where you want, you have a good job, but there are so many of us that are not as fortunate. And I fight for them as well. And I have to add, when you have a state like Florida, that nearly 10% of the state's population has been disenfranchised, you know that this is a people's issue. This is a human issue. This affects everyone, all walks of life. This is not a Democratic issue. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Latino issue. This is not a black issue or a white issue. This affects everyone.
The intent is that someone becomes a productive part of society again. And instead of making it harder for them in society, restore their right to vote. And we're going to have a chance to vote on that as an amendment to the Constitution. Oh, and don't let the action in the courts confuse you. This was this existing action of what the governor and the cabinet do, sitting as the state parole board, where they have made it so difficult to ever get your right to vote back. It was taken to court. A federal district judge, Judge Walker, issued a scathing 50-page report of how this was unconstitutional. That has been appealed by the state of Florida. And so this is a separate matter going on in the courts. This in no way obviates the need to go and to amend by us voting in November the state constitution amendment number 4, because that will put it to rest as far as state law is concerned.
With regards to that question, right here in the state of Florida in 2010, there was testing done that actually took a group of individuals and tested that to see if people that have had their rights restored, would that reduce the recidivism rate? And it actually did. Right here in Florida in 2010.
Some things that occur within a person's life, some circumstance that befalls them, may not be criminal minded, but maybe just stupidity. My son made a stupid mistake, and to this day, he's 46 years old, and he's still paying for that mistake, 47, almost 40 years. So if there's anything to be done for this, I'm all in favor for it.
The short answer to the question is your son unfortunately has to currently go through this process that has declined him multiple times, and that's one of the reasons why we're here to discuss the amendment.
This seems like the textbook case, best plaintiff that I could ever find for another challenge to this as violating cruel and unusual punishment under the Constitution. So whether it's the NAACP Legal Defense Fund or the Lawyers Committee on Civil Rights, if you get me your information, I'll make sure one of those two groups and the CBC contacts you, because if we're not successful in November, which I hope you are, but if not, it's not like it'd be the first time that the Supreme Court did what a southern state could not find itself to do.
Give us your thoughts on the town hall overall.
Actually, I thought it was great. I thought it was a great subject matter. This is the first town hall that I've been to, probably in my professional career, that has strictly dealt with civil rights and the rights of formerly incarcerated people, and I understand Amendment 4 and its importance. And the truth is, Florida is an outlier within the rest of the country in terms of restoring formerly incarcerated persons' right to vote back. And I would hope that it passes. But we had a chance to talk about a number of things, whether it was prison reform, criminal justice reform, or education. So gave us a chance to have a good conversation that was not filtered and very direct. So it was good.
We just wrapped up Congressman Darren Soto's town hall. There were a lot of issues discussed here today, including the Amendment 4 that will be up for a vote in November. U.S. Senator Bill Nelson touched on that very, very passionately as well, because they want very much for folks who are non-felons and folks who are not guilty of sexual crimes to have their voting rights automatically restored. Right now, the state of Florida is one of only 4 states that still have that problem. These citizens do not have their rights automatically restored after they have served their time. So Congressman Soto, Congressman Richmond, as well as Senator Bill Nelson are working towards that end to push for that vote to go through in November. They also discussed the importance of the Dreamers as well. There were 1 or 2 citizens in the audience that discussed the sort of an injustice with regards to that there were some citizenship issues with them, and it has affected their ability to vote. And in addition to all of these, obviously there were several other questions that members of the audience brought up, and the panel answered their questions as quickly as possible. We had to move out of there very quickly because, of course, the Haines City Council had a meeting immediately afterward, but Senator Bill Nelson also had to leave briefly early because he is flying out to Puerto Rico tomorrow to address the issues going on in Puerto Rico in light of Hurricane Maria. But stay tuned for more from us at FloridaNationalNews.com and everything involved in our Politics and Power series. This is Melissa Thomas coming to you from Haines City.